caved in to the fallout of Hurricane Lily. Bearing the brunt of the storm, Minehead in Somerset. Damage here has been colossal. Hundreds of chalets at the Butlins holiday camp were flooded. And the main indoor market in the town was today awash with merchandise.
The water level itself came near to the top of the door frame there. And obviously we were down here trying to stop the water coming in, but it was just a hopeless task.
Ralph tripped over and went under the water. We couldn't find him. Luckily we pulled him up and then we just got out.
At the height of the storm, the waves came crashing over this seawall, bringing with them thousands and thousands of rocks, stones and lumps of concrete, and pushing any vehicle which was parked here right across the promenade. Across the south, from Taunton in Somerset, where power cables were brought down, blacking out thousands of homes, to London, where the Thames barrier was raised as a precaution to flooding. It was also reminiscent of the hurricane of '87. An oil rig berthed off Portland in Dorset snapped free from its mooring, at one point threatening to drift into ships taking shelter. It was a storm which struck in a moment, causing this damage, but the clear-up will take many weeks. Adrian Britton, News at 10, the West Country.
The Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh were treated to some more spectacular sights and pageantry on the second day of their state visit to Thailand. Our royal correspondent Nicholas Owen saw them too.
Below the temples of Siam's ancient capital Ayutthaya, thousands of candles float past the Queen tonight, the highlight of a spectacular show about a city that centuries ago was the heart of an empire embracing most of Southeast Asia. A pageant dramatised a history filled with conflicts and bloody battles, striking images of old Siam. Fireworks burst among Ayutthaya's temples. Finally, 3 of the cast of 1,000 prostrated themselves before the Queen. She offered thanks and was clearly thoroughly delighted by it all. There was another very colourful event earlier in the day. Thailand may be one of this region's fast-expanding tiger economies, but there is fierce pride in the country's cultural heritage. A procession of ancient royal barges, that heritage on dramatic display. A salute for the British guests of honour. Even Prince Philip couldn't resist a snapshot for the family album. Actually, it was all a rehearsal for a Thai Royal Golden Jubilee procession next month, though a rehearsal where nothing could be allowed to go wrong in the presence of such important British visitors. One contrast today, a boisterous reception for the Queen from hundreds of university students. Nicholas Owen, News at 10, Bangkok.
The government put forward plans today to make it a criminal offence for the media to pay witnesses in court cases. It follows concern over chequebook journalism in the Rosemary West murder trial, where 19 witnesses received payments from newspapers and television. The gas industry regulator confirmed today that thousands more households will be able to choose who to buy their gas from in the new year. A scheme in the southwest allowing different gas suppliers into the market is to be extended to Sussex and Kent. And the novelist Graham Swift won the Booker Prize tonight for his comic novel Last Orders. The 47-year-old former teacher received a cheque for £20,000. As we heard earlier, proposals for a moral code to be taught in the schools are now to be published tomorrow. They come in the wake of the call for civic renewal by the murdered head teacher's widow, Frances Lawrence, and in a week when indiscipline in schools has again been making headlines. The proposals will deal with how people should conduct personal relationships, for example, with respect for the law and truthfulness. But should morals be dictated in the classroom? For tonight's special report, Vernon Mann asked the people who would be most directly involved.
This notion that children should feel comfortable, that parents and teachers...
The teachers of tomorrow in class today. Under discussion, the teaching of moral values.
We're talking about an individual person here that we're developing in school, and it's their individual moral character as well we're developing.
This moral teaching thing, I think we tend to be expected to do so much.
For these trainees in Birmingham, a new code will be another set of rules to worry about.
And morality is covered throughout the curriculum, through all the subjects, and it's something that should be brought up day by day. And by having something prescriptive, you're into quite a an extent limiting what the teacher can cover.
It's break time at Thomas Tallis Comprehensive School near Greenwich, South London. 1,200 children from a cross-section of ethnic and social groups. What moral lessons do they think they need? The students here will tell you that moral issues arise and are discussed quite frequently during the normal course of their everyday studies. They'll tell you, too, that most of them knew the difference between right and wrong before they even started school. And everyone agrees that, like charity, moral education should really begin at home. And in the majority of cases, home is where children get their initial moral guidelines.
I've been brought up by my mum, and my father as well, who always instilled in me sort of that while there are certain things that are okay and certain things that aren't, you still have to find your own way through life and, you know, find what is acceptable and not acceptable to yourself as well as to society in general.
Erin's mother Jane is a trained counsellor and often helps talk through problems with students at the Comprehensive. She hopes she won't be presented with a definitive list of what's morally right or wrong.
I'm sure I'd get very upset if I felt that the school were teaching my son one way of being and that particular way was totally contrary to my own way of being. Yes, I'd get very upset about that.
In the sixth form common room today, Erin and his schoolmates were voicing similar misgivings.
I reckon schools and the community in general should teach like respect for one another and individual and collective responsibility rather than a set of morals which you've all got to adhere to.
People should be open to build their own set of morals because you cannot enforce a set of morals on someone that is not going to receive them.
It's like the government thinks we're a generation gone bad almost. Everywhere you hear is that teenagers do this and teenagers do that. But we do have morals, and we're not, just because some people may go out and mug people or, you know, do violence upon each other, it doesn't mean that every teenager's the same. We do have morals, it's just we think for ourselves.
Their head teacher says the focus on morality has been helpful.
I think what's probably less helpful is the kind of political furore that surrounds it, put in the context of schools that are failing children, that parents that are failing children, parents that are failing schools. And it becomes too regulatory as a debate.
Details of the recommended new moral code will be published tomorrow. Vernon Mann News at 10, Greenwich.
Football, the England and Middlesbrough striker Nick Barmby tonight signed for Everton in a deal worth nearly £6 million. Barmby was Middlesbrough's leading scorer last season, but he's only scored once this year. In tonight's UEFA Cup second-round second-leg matches, Aberdeen only managed a goalless draw against Danish team Brøndby in Copenhagen. They go out 2-0 on aggregate. But Newcastle fared better, trouncing the Hungarian team Ferencváros 4-0. The Colombian Faustino Asprilla scored the first goal on his recall. He went on to get the second as well. The best, though, was this individual effort from David Ginola. Les Ferdinand completed the drubbing in the last minute. The final score, 4-0, Newcastle go through. The main news again, the Education Secretary Gillian Shepherd has been rebuked by the Prime Minister for her remarks today on caning. And finally, the yacht Time and Tide sailed into Rio today to complete the first stretch of the BT Global Challenge Round the World race. She was 4 days behind the first boat in, but anything but disgraced, as all her crew are disabled. Michael Nicholson was in Rio to see them come in and to hear the stories of their adventures so far.
Call it an epic voyage, and it could be the understatement of the year. Or call it an irresponsible adventure, as some have. But at first light this morning, Time and Tide arrived off Rio, the crew eating breakfast and in excellent form. And cheered on by the crews of other yachts, they crossed the line, confounding those who said they'd never make it. They left Southampton 4 weeks ago, competing with 13 other yachts in this 30,000-mile race. The start was the worst weather they've yet experienced. But they know this first 5,000-mile leg is only training for what's to come. The South Atlantic, the Roaring Forties, and rounding Cape Horn.
When they left Southampton, they said they'd hoped to be competing on equal terms. They expected no sympathy. It's happened just that way. They've been sailing hard and fast. And coming in here today is a personal triumph for each and every one of them. They asked no quarter. None was given.
But then this is a rare crew. Stuart Boreham, deckhand and cook, suffers from cerebral palsy. Lizzie Tring, another deckhand, another cook, is another victim of the illness.
Yes, this leg was really quite easy, a lot of sunbathing and sitting around in shorts. The next leg is really something that you're not going to repeat on another yacht, probably not on another race. It's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing.
Paul Hepplethwaite, who mans the mainsail winch, is deaf, but the crew are quickly learning sign language. And Paul Burns, an ex-para who lost his leg in an IRA explosion, was told he was a fool to come.
Well, I think I'd have been told I was idiotic if I wanted to sort of climb Everest or something like that. But on a boat, it's 67 foot, there's nowhere to go. You know, my problem is walking around, and there's not a lot of walking around to do.
Skipper James Hatfield, a veteran of 8 Heart operations, paid tribute to his crew.
The feeling on board is amazing. You know, the speed people respond, it's great, and they deserve every bit of credit for getting here. I mean, they're the people who drove the boat here.
5,000 miles down, 25,000 to go. But just across that finishing line in Southampton in 9 months' time will be victory enough for them. If they do that, then we might all agree the rest take second place. And there's not a crew here who'd disagree. Michael Nicholson, News at 10, Rio de Janeiro.
Good luck to them. That's the news. Good night.
Hello, good evening. Well, after all the drama of last night, I'm sure most of us are pleased to see a much quieter night tonight, even though it's a colder night with a widespread ground frost. The northwest having thicker cloud and some patchy rain, and little change there tomorrow, but for the rest of Britain, another quiet day with some sunshine and a mostly dry picture too. Let's come back to tonight, though, in more detail. Most of Britain will be dry overnight tonight. 1 or 2 light showers near western coast, perhaps, and thicker cloud producing more outbreaks of rain in the far north and west. But with clear skies for most of us, there will be a widespread ground frost, and air temperatures will be getting close to freezing by the end of the night, perhaps down to 1 or 2 degrees in places, but higher than that where you have the thicker cloud in the northwest and on the west coast with the winds coming off the sea. Now tomorrow, another quiet day, really quite a bit of sunshine around for England and Wales, southeastern parts of Scotland and southeastern parts of Northern Ireland, fairly bright for a while too. But that thicker cloud in the northwest will increase, I think, later in the day. Some heavier outbreaks of rain there, a few spots in other western areas late in the day. Another fairly cool day, especially after that cold start. Afternoon temperatures at best around 12 or 13. Good night.
Sponsored by Powergen, producing electricity, whatever the weather.
Good evening from the Central Newsroom. Arsonists are thought to be responsible for a fire which destroyed a derelict hotel. At one stage it was feared people may have been trapped inside.
The former King's Hotel on the Hagley Road in Birmingham has been boarded up since a serious fire 2 years ago. It's now derelict. There were fears that people may have been living rough inside.
There's a possibility of squatters in the property, so we're treating it as persons reported, and we're doing a thorough search of the premises at the moment. We had problems entering the building because it was boarded up, and we had to make sure it was safe before we let firefighters enter.
40 firefighters tackled the fire. It brought chaos to rush hour traffic using one of Birmingham's busiest commuter routes. Investigators are looking into whether the fire was arson. There was a report of a break-in during the night. Senior detectives have been called to the hotel to find out how it started.
As MPs argue about outlawing combat knives, the policeman who set up Britain's first knife register claims it's led to a big drop in knife-related crime.
So far, 13 retailers have signed up to the knife code introduced by Coventry Police in February. Anyone who buys a knife is asked to enter their name and address on a register. The officer who devised the scheme says it deters people from buying knives for the wrong reasons and points to a 15% drop in knife-related crime.
Well, I think it has been embraced tremendously well by the business outlets in Coventry. It's been a success. They've showed moral courage and a social conscience. I think the time is now right that this scheme be introduced nationwide.
This city centre department store is the biggest retailer involved. It says customers have been very supportive.
We've sold thousands of knives, we've taken thousands of names and addresses, and we have had only half a dozen people that have minded giving us their names and addresses.
Coventry's knife code is still the only scheme of its kind in the country, but its success hasn't gone unnoticed. Norfolk Police plan to introduce their own scheme next month.
A student has died from meningitis 2 weeks after celebrating his 21st birthday. Nicholas Barton was studying at Birmingham University. He was admitted to Selly Oak Hospital on Wednesday, suffering from headaches. Other students have been given antibiotics, but university officials say no one else appears to have been affected. A private firm has been given more time to put together a bid to take over a pit threatened with closure. It's the second time the deadline has been extended.
Another delayed decision and another day in the on-off saga of Hemheath Colliery. It was closed in 1994. A private firm, Coal Investments, took it over, but less than 2 years later the administrators were called in and the pit went back into the hands of the Coal Authority. Today, another private company, Hemheath Energy, was given more time to get the financial backing together to take over the pit at Stoke-on-Trent. They had until October the 25th. That deadline's been extended. The company must now get the bid ready by November the 8th if the colliery is to remain open. It's too late for 200 workers who already lost their jobs. 50 are still working there on what's known as care and maintenance. Basically, that means the pit will be in perfect condition to reopen, but only if Hemheath Energy can convince the Coal Authority that it's the right company for the job.
A new emergency unit has been opened at a hospital which had been criticised for overcrowding and poor facilities. £2.5 million has been spent on the new unit at Good Hope Hospital in Sutton Coldfield. Staff hope it'll mean there's no repeat of last year's problems when patients were left on trolleys in corridors. Football now, and tonight's results from the Nationwide League. In Division 1, it was a bad night for the sides from the Potteries. Stoke City went down 4-1 away at Oxford, and Port Vale lost 3-1 at home to Barnsley. Meanwhile, Birmingham City, who are looking for their first away league win of the season, led at Portsmouth for much of the game thanks to a Paul Furlong goal, but had to settle for a 1-1 draw. In the second division, Crewe beat Rotherham 1-0, Walsall lost 2-0 away at Notts County, and Shrewsbury Town salvaged a point at Peterborough thanks to a last-minute equaliser by Frankie Bennett. Well, finally, 2 rover enthusiasts have spent hundreds of hours restoring a car they found in a barn, and they believe it may have been a start of the first ever motor show.
George Ellis and his son David are both rover car enthusiasts, and when they spotted an advert for a rare 1936 sports saloon, they couldn't resist going along for a look.
We found it in a barn just south of Stratford, in a very, very sorry state. Basically looked like 1.5 tons of scrap metal, rust holes everywhere, a very awful shade of red oxide paint on it. But Dad wanted it, paid the man for it, we loaded it on the trailer and drove it away.
It took George and David 2,500 hours to restore the old Rover to its pristine pre-war condition. Now they believe the car was Rover's prototype for the model, and probably the very one displayed at the first motor show held at Earl's Court 60 years ago. David and George, who come from Nuneaton, have now asked historians at Rover's Motor Museum to help them verify their discovery.
That's all for now. Charlie's next with the weather. The next news from Central is at 6:10 in the morning, but for now, a very good night to you.
Central Weather, sponsored by Stay Bright Windows, the clear choice in any weather.
Hi there, well, a bit quieter than last night, isn't it? Hardly a breath of wind out there, and wouldn't you know it, even that's to blame for tonight's main weather feature. It is a frosty recipe. Clear skies, a cold northwesterly airflow, and with that wind dropping out completely, temperatures are going to be able to get down as low as freezing. That'll lead to a widespread frost, a ground and air frost. Now, the geraniums in the garden tubs are already shivering at that thought, so don't forget to wrap up your delicates for the night. Do the same for yourself, but get up early tomorrow because it's going to be worth savouring the sight over a leisurely breakfast. It's going to be one of those classic autumnal mornings, cold, crisp sunshine everywhere. The best bit of the day, but still enough sun to last through the afternoon, and a little warmer than today with highs of 14 Celsius. Frosty tonight then, but some sunshine to look forward to tomorrow. Enjoy it. Good night.
The Central 7-day weather line, 0336 40 40 10.
They seem like three unrelated crimes. An Oxford Don found dead in his study. A Manchester drug dealer shot dead in the street. A businessman murdered in Hong Kong. Different victims.
Oh, Morse. At last.
Different locations.
It's all right, chaps. I'm a tourist.
Each investigated by a different character.
He's the key.
Each crime would lead them into a different conspiracy. A conspiracy of silence.
You kill?
Of lies and deceit.
Let's just have a chat then, shall we?
And a dark, mysterious secret.
That narrow the field down for you?
But there is a connection. One that links all three cases. One that's staring them in the face. Prime Suspect 5. Crack. Inspector Morse. Britain's most popular button. Drama premieres from ITV.